When you hear the term alternative hip hop, what comes to your mind? Maybe Tribe Called Quest, Common, Slum Village. All these are right in their own way. But when I think of alternative hip hop, the first thing that comes to mind is Food and Liquor. Lupe Fiasco's debut album, Food and Liquor, still stands for me as the pinnacle of alternative hip hop. This album spoke to me like no other album did at the time. In the early 2000s, my favorite rappers were probably everybody's favorite rappers. 50 Cent, Ludacris, Lil Wayne. But when and I'm pretty sure every other young black nerd, heard Kick Push for the first time, it completely changed the concept of hip hop for us. This is a look back and retrospective of Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor. I remember hearing Kick Push for the first time and honestly being confused at what I was hearing. Black people in skateboards, that just not normal. That doesn't mix. But the song itself was so infectious. It was a super chill, pounding beat by a soundtrack, which Lupe would work with a lot more in the future. And it was mixed with this super confident lyricism that just felt so different from everything out at the time. Kick Push represented something that was largely missing from hip hop culture, and that was this grimy, nerdy, undefined style that seemed to speak directly to me and many other young black nerds. And to me, that's one of Lupe's strongest attributes. He has this aura of coolness and swag, but yet it wasn't flashy or drenched in cockiness. Lupe's music was alternative, not because it utilized jazz samples or R&B beats, but because it spoke to a completely different demographic that really wasn't represented at that time. Not only is Kick Push a great introduction to Lupe, but it's a great introduction to Lupe the storyteller. Lupe effortlessly glides through a story in which he describes the trials and tribulations of a young skater trying to find his way in the world and find himself. Lupe has such a stellar way of storytelling in which is not pandering or feeling like a story. Every line has meaning, every verse has cohesiveness with the preceding or succeeding verse. And Lupe continues to use his album to tell these stories in songs like He Say, She Say, the instrumental, and the cool. And this kind of becomes his own style in itself. Not only is Kick Push such a different style for hip hop, this album as a whole truly shines in its genre blending and experimental sounds. You have the alternative rocks inspired the instrumental or Daydream, which gives us a fusion of old school traditional pop mixed in with this outworldly spacey sound with this nice string sampling. Food and Liquor brings a ton of variety to the table and completely switches up expectations every few tracks, which gives each song kind of this own unique standpoint in the album. Probably my favorite Lupe Fiasco song of all time has to be Hurt Me Soul. It completely and perfectly captures everything great about Lupe. It shows his love for hip hop and respect for the past artists, and he displays this masterful lyrical technique in which he raps about his past experiences growing up with hip hop. But at the same time, he raps about the general ills of the world, both from the standpoint from the hood and from a global standpoint. And one of my favorite little parts of the song is from the third hook. Each hook, he's portraying some type of hardship or problem that people have in their life. So we have lines like, my mom can't feed me, they burned my village, I ain't got no hang time, and poison our leader. And this draws a broad picture of the many different problems people face in worldwide and in different cultures. That theme itself is genius because it makes the song sort of an outlet for frustrations. However, in the third hook, he says a line which always makes me smile. I can't stop eating, my best friend's leaving, my pastor touched me, I love this country. I just love the irony in that last line, I love this country. It's just this blind patriotism that makes it so great. Everybody talking about all their legitimate problems, and here comes this guy talking about something he loves his country, not realizing that in itself is a problem. And I've got to shout out the third verse. It is just brilliant. Lupe raps an entire verse running off the in sound, but everything sounds so completely natural. It's just straight up effortless, and his flow just sounds like he's having a conversation. That's just how smooth everything feels in this verse. Another standout track is American Terrorist. So let's kind of look at the context of America at the time. This is the mid-2000s, and 9/11 was still fresh in Americans' mind. And the U.S. is deep in the Middle East, and Muslim citizens has a natural target on their back, and it's been like this for years. Lupe being a Muslim and growing up as a young black youth in America definitely gives him a unique perspective that we don't see a lot in hip-hop culture. So the song American Terrorist, Lupe raps about the contradictory nature of America's labeling as terrorists, while many Americans are terrorists themselves, just to their own country. Lupe raps lines like camouflage Torahs, Bibles, and glorious Qurans, the books that take you to heaven and let you meet the Lord there, have become misinterpreted reasons for warfare. We read them with blind eyes. I guarantee you that there's more there. The rich must be blind because they didn't see the poor there. This established Lupe's feelings towards people's misinformation regarding religion and how people are deliberately misled in the content of these religions. He suggests that Americans are terrorizing themselves when he raps lines like, "Can you please call the fire department? They're down here marching for freedom. Burn down their TPs, turn their TVs on to teach them." In which he explains the contradictory nature of Americans fighting each other over basic human rights, destruction of culture, and forced indoctrination through news media. He goes on further about talking about extremism and how both sides can be extremists, with lines like, "Now, if a Muslim woman strapped with a bomb on the bus with seconds running give you the jitters, just imagine American-based Christian organization planning to poison the water supplies to bring the second coming quicker." I've got to commend Lupe here for taking such a controversial and hot topic and, addressing it with such finesse and ability and skill. Outside of Kick Push, we get another example of Lupe the storyteller in the song The Cool. In this song, Lupe is being portrayed as a drug dealer who died and mysteriously comes back to life. Any Lupe Fiasco fan knows about the sophomore album, The Cool, in which the song is a springboard for that album as a concept album. The Cool starts with this harsh synth sound that gets drowned out by an increasingly loud drum loop as Lupe raps about this character waking up in his casket. 6 months has passed since this character has died, even though the character only believes it's been hours since he's died, and he digs himself out of this coffin. One of my favorite lines from this song was when Lupe said, "And when he couldn't dirt spit, he swallowed it, working like a, reverse archaeologist, except his buried treasure with sunshine. So when some shine through a hole that he had drove, it reflected off the gold and almost made sun blind." I just like the idea of Lupe thinking in the middle of the verse, saying, and then coming up with the term reverse archaeologist. The story continues as the character tries to make his way back home only to be robbed by the same people who shot him, which at this point he's finally accepted his death and shows no fear. I really do like the concept of kind of like taking one song and expanding it and making it to this much bigger work, and how it actually foreshadows his entire second album. Lupe definitely brought some new fresh perspectives to hip hop. Him having this Islamic influence on tracks like The American Terrorist in his intro, or him combining his nerd culture with his hood culture and his experiences growing up in Chicago. And all this comes together in such a unique lyrical and audible package. So if this wasn't completely obvious at this point, I really love this album. As far as debut albums go, Food and Liquor is an outstanding one. There are some growing pains here and there. I didn't particularly like Kick Push. As a follow-up, it kind of falls a bit flat. Nowhere capturing the spirit of the original. And while I understand it's going for a different tone, it's kind of the track I skipped the most on the album. And there's a few tracks that kind of get lost in the midst of everything, like Real, He Say, She Say, and Pressure. And I could also say that some of the tracks feels a bit overproduced. They sound a bit cluttered with just a whole bunch going on all at once. Despite these little bit of problems, Food and Liquor still stands as one of my favorite projects from Lupe. My favorite tracks are as follows: Just Might Be Okay, Kick Push, the instrumental, Daydreaming, The Cool, and Hurt Me Soul. If you made it this far, I appreciate your time and interest. My name is Brian, and this channel is called Sound Test. And this is just an outlet for me to talk about all the nerdy and musical things that just comes up in my mind.